Welcome to the All Things Event Planning with April podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. Each week, we'll be spilling all the secrets that other event planners and industry professionals don't want you to know. From negotiating for the perfect venue to knowing when to walk away from a project, we'll give you the expertise so that you can plan any event, regardless of your experience level. Now, let's get into this week's topic with your host, April.
Hello, and welcome back to the All Things Event Planning with me, April. I'm so excited to be returning for the second season. Yay! Round of applause. Yes, I'm so excited to be back for season 2. Season 1 was a huge success. Shout out to all of our subscribers and our listeners out there. Because of you, season 2 is possible. So give yourself a round of applause too. And if you thought season 1 was amazing, you are going to be in for a real treat for season 2. So one of the things that we focused on in season 1, just to do a brief recap, was pretty much just the how-tos, how to get into the event planning industry, how to pick vendors, how to deal with conflict. So those are the hows. So now we're going to get into, for season 2, beyond the 101 how-tos, like really what actually happens in the industry. Now you have your foundation from season 1, you're ready to go, and now we're going to enter into season 2 being a little bit more seasoned and actually give more real life examples of things that actually happen in the industry so that you know how to deal with it going forward. So if you're interested in getting a more in-depth look into how to deal with the actual event planning industry or just starting a business in general, then this season is for you. Now, this episode in particular is how to deal with people taking what you think are your ideas or taking your clients, taking your vendors and using it and implementing it into their business or to their event. So I'm going to tell you how to manage that as a professional and things that you can do so that if that is a concern of yours, then going forward, that won't be such a big problem for you. So if you're interested in the How to Save My Stuff episode, then keep on listening. Now, before we get into the real nitty gritty, I want to give a huge shout out to this episode's sponsor. Yes, God, we have sponsors now, girl and guy. Yes, God. Yes, God, we have sponsors now. If you didn't know, now you know. This week's sponsor is by Client Business Services, located in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. They provide business staffing, recruiting, business development, and HR management. So if you are an organization looking for temps, direct hires, temp to perm, the Client Business Services is the organization for you. They have been in business over 20 years and also have government contracting experience, which is super duper awesome. That's always good to know just in case you're on the go. This company is government certified. They provide healthcare staffing as well as corporate staffing. If you are interested in more information, you can reach out to the company. Their telephone number is 301-971-4306. Again, it's 301-971-4306. The name of the company is Client Business Services and Associates. If you want, email them at info@clientbusinessservices.com. Again, that's info@clientbusinessservices.com. Business has 2 S and then there's services with an S at the end. And now on to this week's episode. Okay. There comes a point in time when you're in this industry where you're gonna run into people who are going to come to your event and you think they have great intentions, and then you go to their event and it seems like they're copying you. And so you're not quite sure how to deal with that. You're not quite sure how to navigate through those waters. And so I'm going to give you the nitty gritty on things that have happened to me personally in my business and how you can avoid them going forward in your business, because it's a really tricky thing when you're talking about intellectual property or just your own creativity. Now, everyone who is in the services or creative services businesses spaces, you know, when you design something, when you create something, you take it really personally if someone is trying to take your stuff or use your contact or take your idea. So it's definitely personal when you go to an event that you might have planned, or you were talking about this idea with someone and they did it. So here's what you do. The first thing that is tried and true is to keep your mouth shut. You know, sometimes when you are oversharing your ideas, what happens is if people are able to execute them quicker than you are, then it becomes their idea. And the way to really tell if someone is genuinely interested in you or your idea is to just give them a very top level scenario of what you're trying to do. If they start getting real in depth into like, oh, so how are you going to do that? Who are you working with that? How did that come about? Then it might be less of an inquiry and more about, this might be something that I want to do on my end. So that's one way to kind of field it out. Now, of course, obviously teamwork makes the dream work, but if you're at an event and you don't really know the person, I would try to keep as many things close to the vest as possible. Just tell them that you're working on some things. Keep things very, very vague, especially if you can tell if their team is larger than yours. You just really want to keep things close to the vest. Another thing is, let's say you used a vendor like a DJ for your event, and then you go to their event and they have the same DJ. Now, of course, part of you feel like, wow, this is great. You know, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but this is my DJ. How dare they take my DJ? Well, here's a way around that. There's two ways you can do it. Now, you can't really stop the vendor from working with other clients, but what you can do is put a clause in so that you can make the DJ or the vendor exclusive to your business for a certain amount of time. Maybe if the partnership is really large, or maybe the initiative is really important, you can have an exclusivity deal with them so that no one else is working with that particular vendor. That's one way of doing it. Or another conversation would be just to ask the vendor if there's specific companies that are close to yours or that you may not have conflict with. Ask them to see if they won't work with them. But the only way to really guarantee that is to lock them up in contracts. If you're new, it's going to be really unlikely that will happen unless it's someone that's pretty close to you. So that's another way of kind of securing that no one uses your DJ, for example. And then there's little subtle things like, oh, I like those flowers. They didn't use your vendor, but maybe they like the same type of flowers. Let's say your event, you had sunflowers. And then at their event, they had sunflowers too. And you're like, why would they use sunflowers? I like sunflowers. Who does that? That's more of like subtle, creativity stealing. There's not much you can do with that, especially if they haven't used the vendor before. If you find that every time you go to an event that they have something like a little smidget here or a little smidget there, there's two things you can do. You can either stop inviting them, okay, which is kind of hard, especially if you are really in the same industry and same circle. You can stop inviting them, or, which is less common, you can kind of like lock the event up so that people aren't able to take pictures, post photography until after the event is over, or on your pictures, copyright them. There's so many different ways of making sure that you're getting the credit for the creative idea that you had. So those are the few more common things that I feel like you will run into when you are out and about in the industry. And I think the last most common thing that you kind of run into, besides competitive competition, you also will find that while you're at events, every time you go talk to someone, they'll come behind and talk to who you were talking to. You'll find that someone will come up. Every time you go talk to someone, they're coming up behind you, trying to talk to them. So there's a few ways to counter that too. What you could do is go up to the person and say, hey, I noticed that every time I'm talking to a vendor, you're coming right behind me. How about you and I partner so that since we're using the same vendors, we're doing similar things, we can just execute this event simultaneously to kind of help decrease the competition that may come from there. Or if you find that it's really over escalating and it's becoming a huge issue, if you can't confront them, see if they know someone else that's in the industry at the event and see if you can kind of get them, especially if you've seen them around. You could tell us something that they're doing often. Maybe you all know a mutual person who kind of come in and be the intermediary, because competition is healthy. Competition is necessary. But I think sometimes it gets to a point where it's like, this person's trying to stomp all over what I'm doing. And there's enough out here for everyone to shine. There's enough business. There's enough vendors. There's enough contacts for everyone to succeed. So there's no real need to kind of, every time you see something, oh, I'm going to take that. Oh, I'm going to take that. Because what will happen is you'll start to burn bridges on your way up. And people remember that. You'd be very surprised when you go to events who remembers a face, or if they hear your name or they hear your business name, oh, you have that type of reputation. So you just want to be very, very mindful of how you're moving in these streets. And it's okay to like take a little bit of here and there, but you really want to take an idea and repurpose it so that it's even better, so that the person doesn't even know you bit off their idea. That's the whole goal in recreating someone else's ideas and using it so that you can prosper in your business and be successful. So that's it. That was this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Special shout out to our sponsor, ClientBusinessServices.com. If you're interested in sponsoring an upcoming episode of our podcast, you can send us an email at info@PlatinumEventsByApril.com, or you can give us a call at 646-397-0265 and catch you on the next episode. Peace out.
You've been listening to the All Things Event Planning Podcast.
All Things Event Planning Podcast.
With your host, April. Loved this week's episode? Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or Google Play. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.